mother and her 10-year-old daughter vanished during what was supposed to be a joyful weekend ski trip. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Their room remained untouched, clothes neatly folded, toiletries by the sink, beds made as if they'd just stepped out for cocoa. But hours turned to days, days to months, and still nothing. Not a footprint in the snow, not a single echo of their laughter. The mountain community that had once thrived on winter joy turned into a search battalion, combing through frozen ravines, vacant cabins, and icy ridgelines. Helicopters beat the skies, volunteers beat back the underbrush. Every slope told the same story, no sign of them, and eventually even hope, fierce as it had been, froze over. But then, 7 years later, on a forbidden stretch of the mountain, long closed off after an avalanche, hikers stumbled upon something that made their blood run cold. Evidence that would finally lift the veil on a tragedy too heavy to bear. The morning sun filtered weakly through the mist-covered backyard of Jakob Leitner's cabin, casting elongated shadows across frostbitten earth. He sat at a cracked wooden table on the porch, a half-smoked cigarette trembling between his fingers, a warm bottle of beer weeping onto a stack of yellowing papers. Unpaid bills, fading police reports, and cards that once brought comfort but now just mocked his grief. His eyes, red from years of crying and this morning's whiskey, locked onto Mount Silverfir in the distance. That cursed peak, once the pride of his lineage, now stood like a towering reminder of what it had stolen. 3 generations. Jakob mumbled bitterly, dragging on his cigarette, his voice thick with despair. My grandfather, my father, and me, we bled for you, and this is how you repay us? He took another swig, eyes burning. You swallowed them whole, didn't you? My Anneliese, my little Lena, like they were nothing. The Leitner family had built Silverfir from nothing. First a modest ski run carved into the slope, then a full-fledged resort, attracting everyone from weekend warriors to spiritual seekers drawn to whispered legends that the mountain itself held ancient, sacred energy. It wasn't just a business. It was their soul stitched into the snow. Jakob's thoughts drifted, unbidden, to a memory that refused to fade. He could still feel the small, warm hand of his daughter in his as they strolled the resort together, her laughter rising like birdsong. He'd taught her how to read the sky, how to calculate snowfall, how to greet guests with that Leitner smile. Someday, all this will be yours, he used to tell her. Her eyes, icy blue like her mother's, would light up with wonder. Back then, the future had felt like a promise made in stone. But stone crumbles. It had been a Friday evening in late winter. Jakob's ankle was elevated, swaddled in ice after a nasty fall. The doctor's orders were clear: rest, no skiing. But Lena had planned this trip for weeks, counting down with stickers on a calendar, bubbling over about the new Black Diamond run. Please, Papa, she'd begged, bouncing on her heels. Anneliese had kissed her hair and turned to him gently. I'll take her, she'd said. You know how much this means to her. We'll stay in our usual room. They had done it before, many times. Room 386, 3rd floor, perfect view of the main slope. The staff knew them all by name. It was routine, harmless. On Saturday, the photos started arriving. Lena showing off her form on the slopes, Anneliese's bright smile behind ski goggles, a mother-daughter selfie with whipped cream mustaches and mugs of hot chocolate. Jakob had smiled through his longing, texting back hearts and kisses. Have fun, my loves. But Sunday morning, his good morning text remained unanswered. By noon, his calls went straight to voicemail. At first, he'd reassured himself they're probably in a dead zone on the back slopes. But by late afternoon, dread had set in like a cold front. At exactly 3:47 p.m., unable to take the silence any longer, he'd called the front desk. "Can you check room 306? His voice had cracked, the words thick with anxiety. 20 minutes later, the receptionist called back. "Mr. Leitner, the room is empty. Their belongings are still here, but we haven't seen them since last night." What followed was a blur of chaos, panicked calls, security sweeps, police tape stretched across snow. By sunrise Monday, Mount Silver became a search grid. Rescue teams, volunteers, dogs. Everyone who had ever loved that mountain dropped everything to help. Days turned into a grim routine of disappointment. Leads vanished like footprints in a blizzard. That first year, Jakob believed. He clung to the hope that they were trapped somewhere, waiting. The second year, he pleaded with God, "Take Annelies, just give me Lena." By the third year, hope turned to ashes. He just wanted to bring them home, to bury them properly. Now, 7 years later, all that remained was ritual. Once a year, on the anniversary, he and a handful of volunteers still searched, more out of loyalty than hope. Jakob hadn't run the resort in years. Couldn't. Walking those halls, seeing those slopes, it was like pretending his heart hadn't been hollowed out. His cigarette burned to the filter, searing his fingers. He cursed, dropping it, then noticed his beer had spilled across his shirt while he dozed. His head pounded, both from the morning's drinking and the ache that never left. Then, the phone rang. Its shrillness cut through the quiet like a blade. Jakob groaned, stumbled inside, and caught the receiver just before the fifth ring. "Leitner here," he rasped. "Mr. Leitner, this is Detective Harrison with the FBI," said a clipped, professional voice. "We need you to come to Mount Silver immediately." Jakob's chest clenched. He gripped the counter. What happened?" "We've found evidence related to your wife and daughter's disappearance. There's a helicopter waiting at Silverfeld airstrip. We need you at Raven's Shelf to identify some items." Jakob's knees buckled slightly. Raven's Shelf, a name he hadn't heard in years. His world tilted as he clutched the receiver tighter. The possibility of truth, of something real crashing into the numb fog of grief. "That's a restricted area." Jakob's voice faltered, the weight of 7 years pressing down like the mountain outside his window. "What kind of evidence?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in person, sir," the agent's voice replied, calm, clipped, in control. "The helicopter is waiting." The line went dead. For a moment, Jakob stood frozen, the phone still against his ear. His pulse thudded in his temples, breath caught between hope and dread. Then something snapped. Like a thread too long held taut, he sprang into motion, ripping off his beer-soaked shirt, fumbling into thermal layers and the winter coat he hadn't worn since the last search. His fingers trembled as he laced his boots, heart hammering louder than the howling wind outside. Could it really be, after all these years, an answer? The drive to Silverfeld airstrip stretched like an eternity. Each curve of the road was one he'd driven 1,000 times, but today they blurred past like a dream. The airstrip was quiet, but tense. An officer met him at the gate, leading him to the chopper, already alive with noise and urgency. The rotors sliced through the sky and Jakob climbed aboard, fumbling with his harness, slipping on the noise-canceling headset with shaking hands. From the air, the mountain looked familiar and foreign all at once. The resort below seemed like a child's playset, too small, too clean, so unlike the jagged grief it contained. As they veered toward Raven's Shelf, a surge of unease welled in his gut. That stretch of mountain was treacherous, closed off for its sudden drops and unstable snowpack. No one was supposed to be there. Not back then, not now. The helicopter settled in a snowy clearing bordered by skeletal pines. FBI agents and local officers stood clustered, their breath curling into the frozen air. Jakob stepped out, ducking instinctively under the blades. and immediately spotted a familiar face. "Mr. Leitner," a young man waved. Jakob squinted. Thomas, one of the resort's ski instructors. 3 other resort employees stood nearby, their faces carved in solemnity. "What are you all doing here?" Jakob asked, blinking in the cold. Thomas shifted awkwardly. "Avalanche training, sir. We were checking snow stability in the restricted zones for our advanced certification. But I spotted something. Red, stuck under some rocks and branches." Detective Harrison approached, an evidence bag in hand. Inside it, neatly sealed, was a small red hoodie. Jakob's knees nearly gave. "Is this your daughter's?" Harrison asked, voice soft but unwavering. Jakob reached for the bag with trembling hands. Through the plastic, he saw the embroidered heart patch Anellis had sewn onto the pocket, the tiny tear on the sleeve mended with blue thread after Lena caught it on a fence. "Yes," he whispered, breath catching in his throat. "She wore this that weekend. I'm sure of it." Thomas nodded. "I recognized it from the missing flyers. They're still up around the resort. We all remember." The detective produced another evidence bag, this one with a men's winter jacket, sleek and clearly custom-tailored, its stitching sharp and unique. "We found this about 65 feet from the hoodie," Harrison said. "Under brush and snow, partially hidden. We think it's connected." Jakob frowned, inspecting the fine fabric, the distinctive cut. "Not local," he muttered, "and not ours. I've never seen this before." "Think back," Harrison pressed. 7 years ago. Anyone stand out, guest or staff wearing something like this? Jakob searched his memory, but time had eroded the finer details. "No," he admitted, "but the resort keeps logs, footage. Maybe someone remembers." "Unfortunately, footage was overridden years ago," the agent said. "But word of mouth might help. Unusual clothes tend to leave impressions." Jakob nodded slowly, eyes drifting again to the red hoodie. How had it ended up here, so far off any regular path? "Can you show me where you found them?" he asked. Thomas led him to a cluster of rocks near a drop-off. The hoodie was wedged under a tangle of branches, as if tucked there deliberately. The jacket lay in a hollow nearby, buried beneath layers of pine needles. Jakob stood still, trying to reconstruct what might have happened. A fall, a chase, a violent confrontation. Why were the clothes separated? And why no bodies? "We'll widen the grid from here," Harrison said. "But first, we return to the resort. Someone might recognize that jacket." As they walked back toward the waiting chopper, Jakob touched Thomas's arm. "Thank you for still searching, for not giving up." Thomas gave a faint, bittersweet smile. "We loved Lena, Mr. Leitner. She was the heart of that place. And your wife, always so kind." Jakob swallowed hard, unable to speak. Back in the air, he clutched the evidence bag tight. A sliver of his daughter. A whisper of what might have been. The helicopter descended onto the resort's helipad. Staff emerged slowly, cautious, unsure. Margaret, the longtime front desk manager, was first to approach. "Mr. Leitner," she breathed. "It's good to see you." Her smile faltered when she saw the agents. "Is something wrong?" "Gather everyone," Jakob said. "All staff, all instructors, in the conference hall." Within 20 minutes, the room was full. Faces young and old, loyal and unfamiliar. Jakob stood at the front, bearing their collective gaze. Harrison stepped forward, holding the evidence bag aloft. "We're looking for anyone who might recognize this jacket," he said. "Even the smallest detail helps." The agents began interviewing staff one by one. Jakob stood apart, watching the slopes through a frosted window. Children laughed, instructors guided, families played. It looked the same, but it wasn't. Not to him. "Jakob, He turned. Matthias Brandt stood there, still fit, still tan, still carrying the easy grace of a man who belonged on the mountain. They shook hands. "Tired," Matthias said. "The hoodie and a jacket. I'm so sorry." Jakob studied his face. "You don't recognize it?" "No, never seen anything like it." He checked his watch. "I've got to run. The advanced kids session is starting. But I hope this leads to something." Jakob nodded. "Thank you." But something tugged at him. A shadow at the edge of reason. He followed. Outside, the sun bounced off snow like shattered glass. Matthias's class, 8 kids, mostly girls, was warming up. Jakob lingered near the equipment shed, watching quietly. Matthias demonstrated a carving turn, then he stepped behind a blonde girl, maybe 12, and placed his hands on her hips, down to her thighs, then to her back. She giggled. Jakob's stomach clenched. The touches were too long, too unnecessary. He'd seen instructors adjust posture for decades. It didn't look like this. And Matthias's attention was mostly on the girls. The boys he barely corrected. As the session ended, a dark-haired girl lingered. "Mr. Brand, I need to use the bathroom." "I'll walk you," Matthias said immediately. Jakob stepped forward. "Don't we have a policy?" he said coolly. "Female staff accompany female students." Matthias blinked. "Oh, didn't see you there." "The restrooms are right inside," Jakob said, turning to the girl. "You can find them." She nodded and walked off. Matthias's jaw tensed, just trying to be helpful. Some parents appreciate the extra attention. Jakob didn't respond, not directly, but something had shifted. Something dark beneath the snow was beginning to thaw. Jakob kept his tone deliberately neutral. "Safety first," he said quietly, masking the growing tension in his chest. Detective Harrison had noticed the brief exchange between Jakob and Matthias earlier, but seemed to dismiss it as a matter of internal resort policy. "Mr. Leitner," he said, approaching, "we've completed the first round of interviews. We'll return to headquarters to analyze the responses and cross-check our findings. We'll also run the jacket through our national database. I'll update you tomorrow." "Thank you, Detective," Jakob said, nodding, but his eyes were already scanning the snowy grounds outside. He was searching for Matthias, hoping, perhaps foolishly, to smooth over the tension of their earlier encounter. But the instructor was nowhere to be seen. Only a fresh trail of ski tracks led into the trees beyond the training slope, as if the man had simply melted into the mountain. Jakob's unease deepened, settling in his gut like a stone. After the FBI vehicles wound their way down the mountain road and the last uniform disappeared from view, Jakob found himself alone in the lobby of the Silver Fir Resort. The familiar scent of pine wax and wood smoke clung to the air, mingling with the gentle crackle of the fire and the muffled clatter of skis being returned outside. It was like stepping into a memory, one that hadn't aged, even if he had. Drawn by a mixture of grief and determination, Jakob climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. His boots echoed in the corridor. At room 306, his hand trembled as he slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open. Time had stood still. The room was just as it had been, neatly made beds, the family's favorite snowflake blanket folded at the foot, a forgotten paperback still on the nightstand. Jakob moved slowly to the bookcase and pulled down the thick, leather-bound photo album. Its cover was soft with age, the spine worn. He sank into the couch, the weight of the album anchoring him to the past. Page after page told the story of a life now fractured. His parents in the early days of the resort, bright-eyed and sunburnt. His own childhood etched in snowy landscapes. The wedding, he and Annalise smiling under a garland arch of pine. Lena's birth. Her first wobbly steps in tiny skis. birthday parties in the lodge, candles glowing in the dim light. Then he turned a page and stopped. There was Lena, 8 years old, standing in a row of kids at ski school, and kneeling beside her, arm around her shoulders, was Matthias Brandt. The jacket he wore caught Jakob's eye, navy with distinctive white panels and custom pockets, the very same unusual seam lines as the evidence bag. Jakob's breath hitched. He grabbed his digital camera and flipped through the photos he'd taken earlier that day, stopping on the jacket found near Raven's shelf. Holding the image next to the photo in the album, he compared them side by side. The match was undeniable. Only time and wear had changed the jacket's colors slightly. The craftsmanship was identical. A cold wave ran down Jakob's spine. The memory of Matthias's hands on that young girl's hips, too long, too familiar, flashed in his mind again. He snapped the album shut and rushed downstairs. Margaret looked up as he approached the desk. "Mr. Leitner, everything all right?" "I need to see Matthias Brandt's current teaching roster," Jakob said. "And if you can, dig up the ones from 7 years ago." Margaret's brows furrowed slightly, but she turned to her computer without question. "Of course, just a moment." The printer groaned to life. Jakob studied the printed schedules under the desk lamp, eyes narrowing. A pattern emerged, one that made his chest tighten. In Matthias's classes, past and present, nearly 80% of his students were girls. That ratio remained consistent across multiple seasons. He kept his tone even. Do parents usually request him, or is it coincidence he ends up with so many girls? Margaret tapped a pen on the counter, thinking, now that you mention it, he's popular with the moms. They say he's really patient with shy kids, especially girls. Builds their confidence, you know? Jakob didn't answer. He was thinking about Lena again, about how nervous she'd been that weekend, about how Matthias had always known the right thing to say. "Can I use your phone?" "Of course." Jakob dialed the number from memory. It rang 3 times. "Matthias Brandt," the voice answered. "Matthias, it's Jakob. Listen, I've been thinking. It's been too long since we sat down, really talked. How about dinner tonight? My treat." A pause. "Tonight?" Matthias sounded surprised. "That's a bit sudden. I know, I should have asked earlier. But, being back here, the memories. I could use an old friend." Matthias's voice softened. "I've got early classes tomorrow, but yeah. Dinner would be nice." "Great, I'll pick you up at 6. That diner in Bulletin still open?" "The Miner's Rest? Yeah, still there." "Zvix, then." Jakob hung up just as Margaret cleared her throat. "Mr. Leitner, I hate to bother you, but there's an issue in the old storage room. The water heater's leaking again." Jakob sighed. "Show me." He gathered the album, the rosters, and followed her down to the resort's basement. The moment the door opened, he was hit by the warm, damp air, thick with mildew and age. "Sorry about the smell," Margaret said, flipping on the flickering fluorescent light. "It's been like this for a few weeks. Not dangerous, just damp. We empty that bucket twice a day." She pointed to the rusting water tank in the corner, where water pooled in an old paint tray. Jakob shook his head at the neglect. His own neglect. Emails, phone calls, bills. He'd let them all pile up. "Call Hendrickson's Plumbing tomorrow, full replacement, if needed. If they can't handle it, reach out to Mountain Mechanical in Silver Grove." Margaret jotted it down. "Will do." Jakob's gaze drifted over the room, an archive of the resort's history. Old skis, banners, forgotten gear. "We should clean all this when the weather breaks," he said. "Sell off what we don't use." "I'd love that," Margaret smiled. "Some of this stuff predates me." In the far corner, Jakob noticed a bulky shape covered by a blue tarp. Moisture clung to its surface. "What's that?" "Mr. Brandt's gear," she said. "Old stuff he's replaced. Keeps his spares down here." Jakob pulled back the tarp. Beneath it lay a trove. Snowboards, ski poles, boots. Most were in good condition, rental quality. "Seems wasteful to hide these," Jakob murmured, lifting a pair of boots. As he shifted a snowboard boot into the light, something odd caught his eye. A small, dark circle near the ankle, like a pressure button. Jakob leaned in. Carefully, he prized it loose. In his palm sat a tiny device, a camera no larger than a coat button. It had no branding, no serial number. Just hand-soldered wires and a resin casing, opaque and purposeful. Not store-bought, not innocent. He stared at it, realization dawning slowly, horribly. Something was very, very wrong. "Margaret, have you ever seen anything like this?" Jakob's voice was hushed, strained. He held the small metallic device in his palm, the strange weight of it unfamiliar, like holding a secret that had waited too long to be found. She leaned closer, squinting. "Is that a camera? In a boot?" "That's what it looks like," Jakob said, turning it over. He found a minuscule power button and pressed. Nothing. Dead. But when he opened a panel, a micro SD card slid out with a soft click. Margaret looked stunned. Why would anyone put a camera in a snowboard boot? Helmets, maybe, for the views. But this, it points up. Exactly. Jakob's stomach turned. That camera hadn't been placed there to capture landscapes. It had been placed to capture people. He dropped both the boot and the device into a duffel bag, zipping it closed with finality. Whatever this was, it wasn't innocent. It wasn't right, and it had to be something Matthias could explain. Or couldn't. Back at the front desk, Jakob found himself staring out at the view again. The slopes bathed in fading gold light, the hum of ski lifts rising and falling like breath. This place, once his family's proud legacy, had survived in spite of him, in spite of his grief, because of people like Margaret. "I should be here more," he murmured. "This place deserves better than a ghost for an owner." Margaret's eyes were gentle. "We all understood, Mr. Leitner. Everyone did." It was 3:30. He still had time before meeting Matthias, time to think, or at least to try. "I'm heading to Bullerton," he said. "Going to see how the town's changed. Call me if you need anything." He slid behind the wheel of his car, placing the bag gently in the back seat like it held something fragile. In a way, it did. Maybe even the final clue to what happened that weekend. As he drove the winding road to Bullerton, memories passed with the trees. He and Annalise chasing the sunrise, Lena counting cows, Matthias riding shotgun, singing off-key to classic rock. The town appeared like a mirage, familiar and strange all at once. Main Street looked unchanged. Murphy's Hardware still leaned on its faded sign, and the diner still promised pancakes as big as plates. The Miner's Rest Tavern, low and dark between buildings, looked like it hadn't aged a day. Jakob parked and sat for a moment, soaking in the stillness. This had been the place of firsts and lasts, first dates, first confessions. The last time they were all truly happy. Inside, the tavern was a time capsule. The smell of wood, beer, and history hit him like a ghost. Only the bartender was new, a young guy with a waxed mustache and a curious glance. Most droll," Jakob said, naming the local brew. He sipped slowly, letting the cold bitterness focus his thoughts. This morning felt like a week ago. The hoodie, the jacket, Matthias's hands on that student, and now the boot camera. Was he letting paranoia blind him? Matthias had been his friend. He taught Lena to swim, for God's sake, patiently helping her conquer her fear of water. Would a predator do that? Wouldn't someone have noticed something off? Complaints? Whispers? And yet, he couldn't shake it. Halfway through his beer, Jakob stood and wandered to the back wall, the tavern's gallery. Photos of town locals and ski resort memories lined the wall in chaotic rows. He scanned them casually, then froze. There, a photo from the last few years. Matthias stood beside a teenage girl, dark hair, striking eyes, maybe 14, maybe 15. She leaned into him with an ease that suggested deep familiarity. His arm was slung around her shoulders. Jakob blinked. Matthias didn't have a family. He never mentioned siblings or children. He had never even talked about being in a relationship. Ever. He returned to the bar and waved for another beer. "Who's the girl?" Jakob asked, pointing. The bartender glanced up. "Oh, Matthias. Yeah, that's his daughter. Adopted, I think. They come in sometimes. Share a pizza. Quiet kid." Daughter. Adopted. Jakob's pulse quickened. Why hadn't Matthias ever said anything? Not once? It didn't make sense. He checked the time. 4:15. On impulse, he pulled out his phone. "Hey, it's me," he said when Matthias answered. "I'm already in Bullerton. Figured I'd check out the old haunts, at the Miner's Rest, having a beer. If you're around, we could meet now instead of waiting for dinner." There was a pause. A long one. Matthias's voice came, clipped and uneven. "You're there now?" "Yeah, just killing time." Colin addicted us. I'm sorry, Jakob. Dinner still works better. I'm in the middle of something. Can't get away right now." Jakob frowned. 6 still good?" Yes, 6 is fine." The call ended abruptly. Jakob stared at his phone. Matthias had sounded startled, panicked even. Weighing the strangeness of it all, he paid his tab and walked to the car. His fuel gauge flashed empty. Great. The gas and go sat at the edge of town, all flickering fluorescence and cracked pavement. Jakob filled the tank, then went inside to pay. As he walked back to his car, something caught his eye. 2 bikers pulling up beside a parked sedan. The lot was empty except for them. One biker dismounted, tried the sedan door. It opened. That's when he saw her. A girl in the back seat. Blonde, maybe 13 or 14. Her face twisted in confusion, then fear. Jakob didn't think. He sprinted. "Hey!" he shouted, yanking the rear door open. "What are you doing?" The man shoved him hard. "Back off, old man." The girl screamed. Jakob lunged, but the biker jumped into the driver's seat. The car reversed violently. The store clerk inside dropped her phone. The sedan's owner came running. Jakob dove into his own car, started it, and gave chase. The sedan weaved, but the driver was clumsy. Jakob angled his car and blocked the exit just before the main road. The bikers jumped out and came at him. One punch to the ribs, another to his jaw. Jakob swung back, clipped one hard, but then he hit the ground, boots hammering his sides. Sirens wailed in the distance. The kick stopped, footsteps ran, a motorcycle peeled away. Jakob, bloodied and bruised, pulled himself to his feet. The girl was crying, huddled in the back seat. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now." She looked up, and his heart sank. It was Alana, the girl from Matthias's class. Police cars screamed into the lot. Her older brother sprinted over. Jakob gave his statement while holding napkins to his face. "Third incident this month," an officer muttered. "These mountain roads, easy to disappear into the woods." Jakob nodded grimly. Easier than taking them from their homes. The girl had calmed. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm Alana." "I know," Jakob replied. "We met this morning. You're one of Matthias Brandt's students." Her face brightened despite the trauma. "You know Mr. Brandt? He's amazing. He always knows how to make me feel brave." Jakob studied her. No sign of fear, only admiration. Maybe he was wrong. I'm glad you're safe, Alana. He turned to her brother. Keep her close. It's getting dangerous out here. With great effort, Jakob staggered back to his car. The mirror offered a brutal reflection. A split lip, swollen eye, and streaks of dried blood beneath his nose. Each turn of the steering wheel was torture, his cracked ribs sending jolts of pain through his body. His face pulsed with every heartbeat, a painful reminder of the ambush, and the taste of blood lingered in his throat. Through his blurred vision, the glowing red letters of the clinic sign finally came into view. It shone like a lighthouse through a storm. The waiting room was empty, thank God. Within minutes, Jakob was led to an exam room, where the familiar face of Dr. Paulison, practicing medicine in Bullerton for over 3 decades, greeted him with a low whistle. Bar fight? The doctor quipped, unpacking gauze and ointments. Something like that, Jakob muttered, barely able to move his lips. As Dr. Paulison dabbed antiseptic onto his face and applied butterfly bandages, Jakob fumbled for his phone. His fingers trembled as he scrolled to Matthias's number. Jakob, you on your way? Matthias answered. Actually, no, Jakob said, his voice low, grim. I had a situation at the gas station. I won't make it to dinner. What happened? Matthias's voice sharpened. Are you okay? There was an attempted kidnapping, Jakob said. A girl was in the car. It was Alana. Your student from this morning? A long pause. Is she... She's okay. Shaken, but safe. I'm at the clinic getting patched up. More silence. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe we should reset. Actually, Jakob cut in, tone casual but firm. I was thinking I could still stop by, just for a quick visit. 1 drink, maybe catch up a bit. The hesitation on the other end was like a stone falling into deep water. I will if it's a bad time. No, it's fine. Come by whenever. 20 minutes later, Jakob stepped out of the clinic looking like he'd gone 3 rounds with death and lost every one. His face was a canvas of bandages, his left eye nearly shut. Each breath was a knife in his chest. He stopped at Mountain Spirits Liquor and picked up a bottle of Macallan 12, the good stuff, the kind they used to drink to celebrate wins or forget losses. Matthias's house sat on a quiet street at the edge of town, a simple white 2-story with green shutters, familiar as memory. Jakob had been here countless times before. Birthdays, poker nights, late-night laughs. But tonight, something felt wrong. Every curtain was drawn, no soft lamplight spilled through the windows. Matthias always hated artificial light. He used to joke that curtains made him feel like a mole. Jakob knocked. Silence. Then, just as he raised his hand to knock again, the door creaked open. Jesus. Jakob, Matthias breathed, eyes widening at the sight. You look like hell. Good to see you too. Jakob grinned, or tried to. It pulled at his lip and made him wince. Sorry for the wait, Matthias added, stepping aside. Was just tidying up. What are you, my mother? Jakob joked. Their laughter was brief, brittle. Inside, the house was almost unnaturally clean. The scent of pine cleaner clung to the air, mixed with something faintly chemical. Every surface gleamed. Nothing out of place. Let's sit out back, Matthias said, leading him through the sterile kitchen. They settled into patio chairs under the cool mountain air. Jakob placed the scotch on the table with a flourish. Brought the good stuff. As Matthias fetched glasses, Jakob scanned the backyard. The lawn looked precision-trimmed, no toys, no signs of a daughter, just quiet, oppressive order. They clinked glasses. Jakob recounted the incident at the gas station, leaving out the worst of it. Matthias nodded solemnly, sipping. The talk turned to the resort. I didn't know you were helping Margaret manage things, Jakob said. She never mentioned it. The last few years got hectic, Matthias shrugged. I just stepped in to help. Someone had to. Jakob hesitated. I should have been there. And you went through hell, Jakob. Nobody expected you to run a business while grieving. They drank in silence. Then Jakob leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. I noticed something today. In your class, most of your students are girls. Is that a trend now? More young women taking to the slopes? Matthias's grip on his glass tightened. Oh, that? It varies. This year's group just leans that way. Coincidence? Jakob nodded. I also noticed your style. Very hands-on, especially with the girls. Might want to be careful. Some parents can get touchy. Matthias let out a brittle laugh. Good point. I'll be more mindful. Then, abruptly, he stood. Come on, I'll show you my new setup. Turn this spare bedroom into a hobby room. Jakob followed, watching the way Matthias glanced over his shoulder. Upstairs, the guest room was now a high-end gear haven. Snowboards lined one wall. New tech, fresh wax. Jakob feigned interest, but his eyes slid toward the adjacent door. Through a narrow curtained window, he glimpsed a pegboard of tools, coils of wire, a workbench. Matthias followed his gaze. That's my workshop. I do my own repairs now. Cheaper that way. Since when are you a tech guy? Jakob asked. Picked it up over the years. Jakob reached into his pocket. Speaking of tech, he pulled out the camera. Matthias froze. What's that? Found it embedded in one of your old boots, in the storage room. I've never seen that before. Jakob walked toward the door, because it looks just like the one in there. Through the glass, a snowboard leaned against the wall. Another identical device nestled near the ankle. Those are for stability testing, Matthias said quickly, to monitor board flex. Facing up, Jakob held up the SD card. Let's watch one. If it's innocent, prove it. Silence. Then Matthias lunged. He grabbed a snowboard and swung. The edge cracked across Jakob's back, sending him sprawling. Pain detonated through his ribs. The device skittered across the floor. Matthias dove for it, but Jakob snagged his ankle, yanking him down. They thrashed on the floor, two aging men clawing like wild animals. Matthias got in a punch to Jakob's swollen eye. Jakob howled. His fingers closed around a ski pole. He jammed it into Matthias's neck, forcing him back. What's on the tapes? Jakob gasped. What did you do? Matthias's smile was monstrous, still too blind to see. You took them, Jakob whispered. Anneliese, Lena, where are they? Someplace you'll never find, Matthias growled. You searched everywhere but the right place. Then, with a sudden twist, Matthias yanked the pole free and jabbed Jakob hard in the gut. Jakob fell, gasping. By the time he stumbled to his feet, Matthias was gone. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Matthias! Jakob pounded the wood. Below, footsteps thundered. Then, faintly, a girl's voice. Curious, confused. Jakob's blood turned to ice. He spun, kicked open the workshop door. The room was a twisted lab. Hard drives, monitors, wires, some looping into snowboards, others into God knew what. On one table sat dozens of SD cards. Another board was Midifa. Jakob grabbed a coil of wire and ran back to the locked door. His hands trembled violently. The lock was simple, residential. 3 tries, then click. The door swung open. He burst down the stairs. His entire body screamed in pain. He reached the front door, threw it open. The car peeled out of the driveway. Damn it. He sprinted around back, scooped up his phone from the patio table where it sat forgotten beside two untouched glasses of scotch. He dove into his car, shaking hands, fumbling the ignition. The engine roared. He slammed it into gear. His thumb mashed the call button. 911. What's your emergency? This is Jakob Leitner, he said breathlessly. I need... Police, 428 Pine Street. Immediately, Jakob shouted, heart hammering, hands shaking against the steering wheel. The man who lives there, Matthias Brandt, he's involved in my daughter's kidnapping. 7 years ago, he just fled with a teenage girl. I think she might be Lena. Sir, slow down, the dispatcher said. Did you say kidnapping? My daughter, Jakob gasped. Lena Leitner, she disappeared 7 years ago from Silver Fir Ski Resort. It's an open FBI case. Matthias just confessed. He took her and now he's run again. Do you have a vehicle description? License plate? No, damn it, I don't. But my resort manager, Margaret Thompson, she has his employment records. The vehicle info should be there. Understood, Mr. Leitner. Officers are en route. One team will secure the house, another is searching. Can you tell us the direction the suspect went? Jakob's tires screamed as he pulled onto the road, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. I don't have visual yet, but he can't be far. Bullerton isn't big. Limited exits. I'm heading toward the town center. Checking the park area. Copy. Units are 3 minutes out. Jakob scanned every shadow, every turn, and then he saw it. There, on the edge of the town park, half hidden beneath a lamppost's weak glow, sat a silver Honda Accord. 2 silhouettes stood beside it, one tall and calm, the other smaller, uncertain. I see them, Jakob barked. Town Park, west entrance, silver Honda. Do not approach. But he was already pulling over. He shut off the engine, stepped into the cool night, and began moving. Slowly, deliberately. Rage and heartbreak carried him forward. Matthias, he called. The name tasted like venom. The man turned casually. It's over, Jakob said, breathless. Police are on their way. I know, Matthias said, voice eerily serene. I can hear them. You always were predictable. Jakob's eyes flicked to the girl beside him. She was older now, taller, with dyed black hair, but the angle of her jaw, the way her shoulders sloped, the shape of her lips. Lena, he whispered. She didn't flinch, didn't smile. Her eyes, empty, distant, met his with a gaze that said nothing. What did you do to her? Jakob demanded, stepping closer. Did you drug her? Matthias laughed. Drug her? Why would I need to? Lena chose me. She stayed with me because she wanted to. Tell him, sweetheart. He turned to the girl. Tell him what you told me, that you love me. Lena said nothing. Her silence was worse than any scream. Jakob's voice cracked. She doesn't even recognize me. Because she doesn't want to, Matthias said. You failed her. I gave her something you never could. Protection, purpose, family. Jakob's fists clenched. Matthias raised his arms wide. But I'll give you a chance, old friend. Man to man. You win, I surrender. I tell them everything. But if I win, Lena finally sees the truth, that you couldn't protect her, that I was right all along. Jakob's breath caught. That's insane. You're going to prison either way. Am I? Matthias smiled. Or will she tell them she came with me willingly, that you abandoned her? I never, Lena's voice interrupted. Both men turned. She looked at Jakob for the first time, really looked at him. You don't, she said again, calmly, prove who's stronger. Her words were like ice water down his spine. What had Matthias told her? What lies had shaped her entire world? Jakob nodded. Fine. They circled each other in the dewy grass, illuminated by weak yellow light and the faint red glow of approaching sirens. Matthias struck first, a sharp jab to Jakob's bruised eye. The pain exploded in his skull. But Jakob charged, tackling him at the waist. They crashed to the ground. Matthias was faster, stronger, and landed a brutal knee into Jakob's ribs. Hands found Jakob's throat, squeezing. "You were always weak," Matthias hissed. "That's why I took them. You didn't deserve them." Jakob's hand scrambled across the grass, found a rock. He raised it, rage boiling, ready to end this. Then he saw her. Lena. Watching. Not blank, not cold, but afraid. And hopeful. If he crushed Matthias now, what would that make him? Just another violent man. Jakob dropped the rock. With a guttural cry, he used the last of his strength to roll them. Now he was on top. His fists rained down, the years of loss behind every blow. "Mr. Leitner, that's enough." Police pulled him off, dragging him back. He didn't fight. Matthias laughed as officers cuffed him. "See, Lena, he's no different, just another angry man." "Shut up," an officer snapped. Jakob stumbled toward Lena. A female officer, Chang, her badge said, was already beside her. "Are you hurt, sweetheart?" Lena didn't answer. Jakob stepped closer, hands trembling. "Lena, it's me, it's Papa. Do you remember me?" A long silence. Then her face crumpled. "You weren't there," she whispered. "You said you'd come, you promised, and you didn't." Jakob's knees nearly gave. "I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to be there. My ankle." "Mom slipped," Lena said, her voice rising. "She fell on the ice, hit her head. There was so much blood. And she didn't wake up. He said you didn't care, that you let it happen." Jakob's heart cracked open. "I never stopped looking for you." Said, "You wanted to be free. That we held you back." "That's not true. Everything I did was for you and your mom." "And the jacket," Jakob added. "We found it, near your hoodie. There was blood. I think he hurt her, Lena. I think." She blinked rapidly. My hoodie?" "The red one," Jakob said. "The one you wore that day." "No." She shook her head. "He told me to give it to him, to let go of the past, that if I gave it to him, we'd be family." Her words broke. We could be more, that no one could separate us if we were the same. The implication hit Jakob like a sledgehammer. Officer Chen gently stepped in. "Oh, sweetheart, we're going to get you help. The ambulance is here." Paramedics approached with a stretcher. Lena looked dazed, disconnected from the horror around her. "Matthias said he loved me," she murmured. "He let me dye my hair. People thought I was his daughter, just his daughter." Her voice trailed off. Jakob reached for her hand. "We're going to bring you home now," he said softly. "I'm here." "I never stopped loving you, and I never will." For the first time, her hand curled around his. A flicker of something in her eyes. Recognition, maybe hope. And as the sirens faded and the cold night wind swept over the park, Jakob held his daughter's hand like a lifeline, like an anchor to the world she'd been stolen from, and the world they would have to rebuild, one painful truth at a time. Jakob wanted to scream, to rip open the police cruiser and tear Matthias apart with his bare hands, but instead, he kept his voice steady for the sake of the one person who mattered most. "What he did was wrong, Lena. None of it was your fault." She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper, but the words landed like a blade. "I liked him." Jakob flinched. "He was kind to me," she continued, eyes wide, distant. "He made me feel special." Jakob felt like the earth beneath him cracked. She meant it. She believed it. The damage wasn't just physical or emotional. It had rewritten the very foundation of who she was. "I know this is confusing," Officer Chen said gently, "but we need to take you to the hospital now, okay? Just to make sure you're not physically hurt." As paramedics helped her onto the gurney, Lena looked back over her shoulder at Jakob. "I don't know what's real anymore," she said. Jakob's voice cracked. "I'm real, sweetheart. And I never stopped loving you. Not one single day." A detective approached as Lena was loaded into the ambulance. "Mr. Leitner, your daughter has been through severe psychological grooming. It's going to take time, months, maybe years. Don't push too hard. Trauma like this, it comes in layers. Will she ever be okay?" "With the right help, yes, but right now you have to meet her where she is, not where you want her to be." Jakob nodded numbly. In the distance, through the tinted window of a cruiser, he saw Matthias. Bloody, cuffed, smiling. That same smile, like he hadn't just shattered a family. "Are you riding with her?" a paramedic asked. "Now follow in my car," Jakob replied, his voice low. "She's not ready for me yet." As the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing but sirens off, Jakob stood alone in the park. His daughter was alive, but not whole. The reunion he'd dreamed of for 7 years had come wrapped in confusion and pain. But she was breathing, and that had to be enough, for now. At the hospital, the waiting room felt like purgatory. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed above, plastic chairs dug into his spine, and that cold, antiseptic scent clung to everything, unable to mask the deeper stench of human grief. Jakob sat hunched over, elbows on his knees, and let the tears come. First silent, then in waves that shook him. 7 years of bottled grief. For Annalise, his wife, likely buried in an icy ravine. For Lena, whose childhood had been twisted and stolen. And for himself. For every missed warning, every moment of inaction. "Mr. Leitner?" He looked up, hastily wiping his face, a doctor in scrubs, clipboard in hand. Her badge read Dr. Patel. "How is she?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Physically, she's malnourished but stable. We've started fluids and nutrients." Dr. Patel sat beside him. "But psychologically, it's more complicated. She's showing signs of PTSD, disassociation, and classic Stockholm Syndrome." "Can I see her?" "She's refusing visitors, specifically you." Yuck's heart dropped. In her current state, forcing a visit might be damaging. She needs to process this in her own time. We suggest trying again tomorrow, with a trauma counselor present. Jakob nodded, devastated but understanding. Then his phone buzzed. "Mr. Leitner, this is Officer Danforth at the Bullerton Police Station. I have an update on the gas station incident." "Yes." "Both suspects are in custody. They confess to being associates of Matthias Brandt. They have information relevant to your daughter's case. Can you come in?" "She doesn't want to see me right now," Jakob said bitterly. "I'll come, but please, send an officer to watch her room." "Already done. Officer Williams is en route." Jakob waited until the young officer arrived. "No one gets in that room without authorization," he told him. "Understood, sir. She's safe." The drive to the police station blurred. Jakob brought the snowboard boot, the object that started it all. Inside the station, he was led to an interview room that reeked of stale coffee and bleach. Detective Harrison entered with a thick file. "Mr. Leitner, thank you for coming. I know this is a lot. Just tell me everything." Jakob gave his statement. Then he handed over the boot, showing where the camera had been embedded. "We recovered that device, along with many more, plus hard drives, SD cards. A disturbing amount of data," Harrison said. "What was on them?" Harrison hesitated. The two suspects? They were fans. One's a tech. He built the cameras. Brandt was making fetish videos of girls and women in snow gear, pants, jackets, fully clothed but filmed in ways that emphasize certain areas. Jakob turned pale. That's what he was doing? Filming them for years? Boots, boards, poles, anything he could hide a camera in, and no one suspected because he was the perfect cover, the trusted instructor, the shy kid whisperer. Yakob's stomach turned. And Lena? Harrison's face darkened. He confessed. Said he'd been fixated on her for years. When Annalise and Lena came alone, he acted, claimed there was damage to a trail near a cabin, lured them, attacked Annalise with a ski pole, claimed she hit her head, but her blood was on his jacket. Likely blunt force trauma. He dumped her body in a ravine. Jakob felt like he was falling. He took Lena to a hidden cabin, one he'd been modifying for years. It had an underground room, not on any records. He comforted you, joined the searches, all while keeping her in that hidden cell. Jakob's fists shook. What did he do to her? Belated her, fed her lies, said you abandoned them, provided books, videos, controlled everything. After 2 years, she believed him completely. When did he bring her home? 3 years ago. By then, he'd broken her down. She dyed her hair, changed her name, believed she was someone new. They became... Jakob closed his eyes. She was just a child. She still is, Harrison said. A child groomed into believing her abuser was her savior. Jakob swallowed the bile rising in his throat. He'd blamed Margaret, said she didn't throw out the old gear, called her stupid. If not for her, Jakob repeated softly, he'd still be free. Harrison looked up. We'll need full access to the resort, and we're already hearing from other families this may expand. Buyers of his content, other victims. It's big, possibly federal. Take whatever you need. Jakob signed the forms. The ride back to the hospital was quiet. At Lena's room, Officer Williams nodded respectfully. No incidents, sir. Through the small window, Jakob saw Lena curled under a blanket. So small, so fragile, her chest rising and falling in sleep. She looked younger than her 17 years, like a child again. Jakob took the seat outside her door. It was hard, uncomfortable, but he wouldn't leave. He couldn't. Not again. He closed his eyes, whispering silently to the woman who should have been there beside him. I'm sorry, Annalise. I wasn't there when you needed me. I failed you. I failed her. But I have her back now, and I swear to you, I'll help her heal. However long it takes, I'll bring our little girl back. As the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, Jakob Leitner drifted into uneasy sleep. A broken father, keeping vigil outside his daughter's room, ready to fight again. But this time for restoration, for hope, for redemption.